last video, we spent a little bit of time setting up our router component. Inside of the router, we placed two scenes. One scene was the root scene, and every other scene that we add will be a child of this root one. Inside of there, we also added a scene that we will refer to as the login scene. When we did so and then refreshed our application in the simulator, we can now see that we automatically got a header generated and displaying on this page right here. So what you see is a header that is being generated by this scene right here. Because we provided a title prop of please log in, we can see please log in at the top. Now this definitely is a good place to start, but of course whenever we are talking about navigation, we're really wanting to make sure that we can show multiple components on the screen. So at this point, I think that we should add in another test component of sorts and wire it up into our router and get a better idea of how we can somehow navigate between the two. So inside of my code editor, I'll find the components directory, and inside of components, I'm going to make a new file that I will call the employee list component. So employeelist.js. Eventually, we will use this component to show a list of employees to the user, but for right now, we're just going to use it to test a little bit of navigation. Inside of employee list, let's set up a little bit of boilerplate just to have some stuff to show on the screen so we can navigate between this thing and the login form. At the top of the file, I will import React and component from React. I'll import view and text from React Native, and then we'll make our class employee list. This is going to extend our component base class. We'll define a render method in here and return a little bit of just kind of garbage JSX for right now. So we'll make a view, and inside of there, I'll put a couple of text tags that just have a little bit of gibberish text. So nothing really meaningful here. I'm just going to say something like employee list. And I'm going to copy that down a couple of times just so we have something to look at. Finally, at the bottom of the file, I will export the employee list. So export default employee list, like so. All right, so we've now got another component to add into our router. So I'm going to close this file and then go back over to our router file. At the top, we will import the employee list component that we just made with import employee list from components employee list. All right, now here comes the fun part. Anytime that we want to add another component that a user can navigate to inside of our application, all we have to do is create another scene. So underneath our current scene of the login scene, I'm going to make another scene component. So I'm going to say scene like so. Then I'll give it a key. And this key is supposed to at least somewhat describe the purpose of this scene that we are creating. Usually I found that it's good practice to just name it after the component that we're trying to show. So in this case, I'll give it a key of employee list. Anytime a user navigates to this scene, we want to show them the employee list component. So I'm going to set up a prop of component, and I'll pass it the employee list. So this tells React Native Router Flux that whenever someone goes to this scene right here, we want to show this component. Finally, we'll give this thing a title. And the title is really anything you want it to be. It should just be something that makes sense in the context of your application. So I'm going to give it a title something like, I think employees, that works. And then one last thing at the very far end over here, don't forget to close off the tag. All right, so let's save this and we'll refresh the simulator and see what happens. So I'm going to refresh. And when I do so, it looks like we still get the login screen appearing here. Well, that actually makes a lot of sense. Right now, we designated our login screen to be the first one inside this list right here. So anytime we open up our application, we're always going to see this scene component right here. Now, if we want to, we can more programmatically tell React Native Router Flux which scene we want to appear first inside of our application. And we can do so by adding one additional prop. So on this second scene, I'm going to add in a new prop, and I'm going to call it initial. Initial, like so. So this initial prop right here will be read by React Native Router Flux, and the router will say, okay, this is going to be the initial scene that we are supposed to show on the screen. So if we now flip over to the simulator and refresh the page, we should see the employee list now appear, rather than the login form. Of course, we probably always want to start off with the login form because our expectation is that a user should really log into our application before we show them any content. So I am going to take off the initial prop from the employee list, and I'm going to add it to the login form instead, just to make sure that it's always the one that is going to show up inside of our application first. Let's refresh again, and now we should be back to seeing the login form appear. Cool, so this looks good. Let's take a break right here and figure out how to navigate between routes in the next video.